post video. So today's video is looking at the brand new mason jar die set from Tonic, and there's also a coordinating mason jar labels die set as well, and you also have two stamp sets. This one kind of coordinates more with just the mason jar, and this one more with the labels, but they do mix and match across the two sets as well. So I'll show you those in detail in a little bit. And I've got 5 samples to show you as well once we've gone through the die set. So this is the main mason jar die set, and you can see here the outside mason jar has these 2 tabs on it, which is similar to the champagne bottle one that came out January 2019, I think, or maybe it was the end of 2018. Anyway, around that kind of time. And that one looked like this, and it was the same concept with these tabs. And the idea of these tabs is so that you can cut the jar out and attach it to your card with both of these, so it gives it that bowed front to it, so that it would look dimensional on your, well, it would actually be dimensional on your card. But you don't have to just use it like that. You can also use these pieces to help you create a spine to create a little jar-sized card, which I've also done, so I'll show you that. I didn't actually do the bowed feature for the cards, but you can also use any of these sort of nesting dies of the mason jar shape to create shaker cards, or you can just cut them straight out and just have an actual jar to put on your card as well. So I've also done those 2 ideas. So you can see you've got this main one with the tabs on, then you have a complete mason jar shape, just like this, which is the kind of one you can use just to cut a mason jar out and put onto your card. And then you have the sort of lid part with the screw threads, so it looks like an opened jar, and you also have an extra inside piece. So I used these 2 pieces here to create the shaker card that I'll show you. I used this piece to create the actual honey jar that I put on a card, and I used this outside piece to create my shaped card blank. So you can they give you a lot of versatility by giving you the sort of different sizes of jars, or the different options of dies to create different kinds of interactive sort of cards more easily, which is brilliant. To go along with the jar, you also get this kind of weird looking shape, which you could actually make into some kind of jellyfish as well, actually. But it's actually the piece of fabric that goes on the top of a jar, and you can use that on the 2 largest size of jars. It works really nicely, and I've actually used it on both of those. Then you also get 2 straws in here, because there's that trend, I don't know how long it's been going on for, but that you drink like drinks or cocktails or stuff out of mason jars. So you have 2 straws, so you can do that kind of a card as well. And the straws are really lovely. You get the outside edge, which just cuts the basic straw kind of a shape, and you even get the little wrinkly bits on the bend where a straw would usually bend, which is really cool. And then the inside piece, that completely cuts out as well, so it's not a verso die of a straw, that completely cuts out. So the idea is that you would stick both on top of each other, so that you've got the backing behind the straw, and you can add colour to it to give it a stripy effect. And then the smaller one looks kind of more polka dotty, but also has I really love the little wiggly bit on the bend of the straw. They've really got the detail in there, which is really cool. And then you have tons of other kind of accessory things, so you can make this jar into loads of different kinds of things that you would keep in a jar. So you can do honey, because you've got a bee here. You can do a sweetie jar, because you've got 3 different sweet dies, and again, they're not verso, they have the actual cutting edge on the main sweet, but you also have the backing plate for them. Then you also have a citrus slice. You get a full circle one, which again is not verso, it has an extra circle around the edge of it, and also a half slice as well. You get flowers, so you could have a floral kind of a jar. You've got this little frilly edge flower here, and then these 3 different types, and this one which has sort of pop-up elements in it as well. Then you get multiple like foliage pieces which could be used as like herbs in jars. So you could have maybe for a gardener or for a cook, you could do like different kind of herbs that you would find in a jar, and you can use the little labels to say what they are as well. So I really enjoyed working with these little branches. I really like them. This one's sort of berries on the end of them. They've got really nice long stems, so you could use these in conjunction with any of your Susan's Garden flowers as well. I think they'd work really nicely, and you get this kind of little sprig too. Oh, and this one as well. So lots of different options for the kind of herby sort of foliage. With the bumblebee or the honeybee, it's not a verso die, so this one completely cuts out, and you have the backing plate as well, so you can do different things with it. And the wings are like pop-up. They have little pop-up elements on them which look really sweet. And oh, I forgot to get the die set out. Wait 1 second. Okay, so I was thinking about this die set, the Beehive layering floral frame, because when I was doing a card with one of these, I snipped that little bee out of there. And I think this little bee would go really nicely as well. It is a slightly different design, but I think that little bee would work really nicely with this die set as well. So if you already had this die set, the mason jar would give you a separate little bee that you could use in conjunction with it too, which I thought I would just share with you. So you also, I think I've gone through almost everything. I think the main one I didn't show was this one. Where you have one little label and it has an extra die that just does the perforation in it as well. So if you wanted some extra detail, or you wanted placement for little Nouveau drops to go all the way around it or something, you've got that little design as well. And oh, you also get a tiny little heart, which is brilliant. It cuts out really nicely. The gorgeous kind of perfect symmetrical little puffy heart, kind of a heart shape, which is really lovely. And then finally we have the little bow as well. Again, it's not a verso one, it has the detail one that completely cuts out, and then you have a separate outside one as well. So that is the main mason jar die set. Then you also have the mason jar labels die set, which gives you loads of different options for adding the labels to the jars. You also have an extra word die in here as well, and I just think this has got quite a lot of nice basic shapes as well in it, or like things that you could use for other items. Like this kind of looks like, you know, you have the sort of signposts that say welcome to the village, or you know, whatever village it is. They kind of look like this, or they could be kind of like road signs or bits and pieces like that as well. So kind of gives you a little bit of different dies that you can use with other die sets that you might have, really. So you've got this one with a scalloped circle, a slightly smaller scalloped circle inside, and then a scalloped heart with a plain heart inside, and that heart is a different size to the other heart from the mason jar. So this was the mason jar heart, and this is the heart from this die set, so they work really nicely together if you do get both die sets. Then you have this little label one, which actually has hearts instead of little holes, and it has a separate little plate that goes inside it. You've got this sort of road sign looking one. The outside one has the pierced edge, the inside one is plain, but if you cut them together, any of these, if you cut them together, you get a frame. This one's really nice. I used that on one of my projects. And this little interior one, it actually cuts a little tiny skinny frame, and it's really lovely. Then you have this sort of kind of like a buckle sort of looking one with a circle in the centre, and all of these circles and stuff are really useful when it comes to the stamp sets, but also you can like cut the heart inside the circle. Both of these, you can cut the heart inside the circle that comes in the set, and you can use those as elements to just create like really fun, funky, modern kind of looking cards as well. So don't just think you have to use these as labels or on a mason jar. There's so many different things you can do with them, which is brilliant. You get So Sweet, which completely cuts out, and then you have the bubble that goes around it. You have this sort of shaped one. You've got a circular one which has a tiny little hole in it, and I think all of them are tiny little holes. So if you like adding your labels with thread rather than like a thicker baker's twine, you've got a lovely dainty little hole to thread your thread through. And obviously that's on a circle tag. Then you have this semicircle, which if you're a kit subscriber, a few kits ago there was a wintry kind of a kit. It was baubles, and there was this same kind of idea where you got like a half design to go in the bauble, so that is emulating that kind of thing. And this has the little sweets on it, so that goes perfectly with a sweetie themed jar. You get a little flag end banner, again with a tiny little hole in, and a little curved banner as well, which is really lovely, especially for sticking your alphabet die cuts to, which I've done on one of my cards. And then you also have 3 different extra little designs that again completely cut out, but you can use them to create or make any of your banners look a little bit more fancy, or to make your jars look a bit more fancy, anything you want to do with those really. So those are the 2 die sets. Then the stamp sets, this one goes more with the tags, and all of the sentiments fit within whichever, you know, kind of tag you want to use. And this circle sentiment that says homemade all the way around and has the little citrus slices will fit perfectly into the scalloped circle as well. And I think it would just fit on the circle tag too, if I could pick it up. Yeah, that would fit absolutely perfectly onto that circle tag as well. So you just want to sort of have a play with these and see which sentiments fit perfectly into which ones. A lot of them will fit lovely into that rectangle there. So you've got From Granny's Kitchen, or not quite that one, Jam Packed with Love, Sugar and Spice and All Things Nice. I actually used that one in the centre of this little skinny frame. Oh, well, yeah. And I put the little skinny frame around it as well. So that one fits lovely in there. You just got to play around with them really, see which ones work. So in this stamp set you have Made By with ... You have, sorry that it's a little bit difficult to see because I've been using them. You've got Sugar and Spice and All Things Nice. You've got Sweet, Mum's Strawberry Jam, just jam, so you can, you know, do whatever kind of a jam. Thanks a Lot, Spread the Love with the little strawberries. This one I talked about just now. A Little Something, From Granny's Kitchen, a heart, Jam Packed with Love, so that would go with any kind of jam themed one, Something Sweet, and We Were Marmalade for Each Other, which is, you know, a lovely punny little one to go on anything marmalade themed. And then the other stamp set is this one, which kind of goes more with the mason jar set. However, the circle, oh, is it the circle? Oh no, it was the circle from the mason jar set actually. If you stamped those little heart sentiments in the centre of a circle die cut, they'd look like love hearts. I just thought of that just now. So for a sweetie themed jar, you could actually make your own little love hearts to go in them. You have this piece which stamps out the sort of top of the jar that hasn't got a lid on, because you can see all the screw threads from the top of the jar. So this one is great for using when you want to add the straw in it and make it into more of like an open jar with a drink inside it. You also have this piece that gives you the kind of reflections on the bottom of the jar, and this piece that sort of gives you more of the reflections near the top of the jar, near where the lid is. You've got 2 little citrus slices, which are really sweet. I really like them. You've got With Love. You've got a little leaf that actually matches the 2 little leaves. I don't know if I showed you them now, but there's 2 little leaves in the die set, and they match that stamp perfectly. You've got a little lemon, which would go with that leaf really nicely. You've got a little peppermint sweet. You've got To and From that would fit on any of like the little tags and things. So you actually get this tag in the mason jar set, so To and From would fit really nicely onto that. Then you've got You're the Sweetest and A Bigger Strawberry, and then Homemade, and then the 3 little hearts that would make perfect love hearts. So you've got For You, Love and XOXO. So really cute little stamp sets that you could just use these by themselves. You don't actually have to use them with the die set. You could stamp all the parts of the jar and kind of like draw your own straw inside them if you wanted to. So lots of different things you can do with those. So that is all of the dies and stamps, and now I'll show you the samples that I have done. So I've got 5 to show you. This one is I've created an actual little mini jar shaped card, and I've used the little fabric kind of jar topper on the top, and I've cut that out of one of the Merry and Bright patterned papers. I've used the Merry and Bright paper pad on all of this, and I did it so it's on the back of the little tag. I used the tag that has that little half piece that's got the sweets on, and I just did it at an angle to the hole rather than having it directly, you know, the half semicircle below the hole. You can put it wherever you like. Then I just added So Sweet on there as well. Then I used that Sugar and Spice and All Things Nice in one of the labels, and that is that skinny label that I was saying, how it cuts out really fine. Look how tiny that is. It's so gorgeous. And I just used the little bow from the mason jar set. I think most of these samples I'm mixing and matching the 2 die sets together, but they work so lovely together. And then the whole rest of this is just loads of different sweets, and I cut them. So I cut the actual sweet from white card, the backing from vellum, and then I stuck the sweet onto a patterned paper, whether it was a tealy one or the kind of red one or a stripy one. Then I came back in with an alcohol pen and just extended the stripes so they sort of go to the edge of the sweet. That's kind of optional, but I just think it looks a little bit better if you do that. But you know, it's optional. Or you could have just stuck them to white card if you wanted to, and completely colour them with your alcohol pens, or you could just cut them out of coloured cardstock as well, whichever, you know, kind of style you prefer. And I just tied some of the Tonic Baker's twine around the top to give the look of it like being actually tied up as a proper jar, and then added the little tag on there. Then I have a couple that are sort of using the die sets without the jar at all. So this one, I've just used all of those gorgeous branches all over the background, and some of the hearts as well, and I just cut loads of them, stuck them all onto some double-sided adhesive sheet. The Craft Perfect ones are perfect for this, and then filled in all of the rest of the adhesive with the diamond pure sheen glitter. And then I die cut one of the little scallop circles from the label die set to create a little aperture, and then I shadowed the little bee and cut it out. I cut it twice and then shadowed it, and then I used one of the alphabet die sets that Tonic do. It is the Miheli one. I'm not sure how you say that, but I just used the uppercase ones to cut the word happy, and then I glued them to that little curved banner, so it's kind of be happy. I don't know if people will really you know that's supposed to say be happy, but anyway, you could add birthday or anniversary or something underneath there, so it says happy birthday or anniversary. And then I just layered it up with some layers of cardstock as well. And this kind of a card is great for using up all of your scraps of card. I just went through my scrap bin and picked out any blues and greens of card that I had and just cut them all out of that. So you can see there's some, it's like satin mirror card in there, as well as just normal coloured card as well. Then another one, using it not with the mason jar, I did this one, again using the foliage, but to create a little wreath. So it's like a little citrusy, marmaladey kind of looking wreath, using all of the foliage together and all of the little orange and lemon slices. I really love those dies with the little slices. And I mean, this little one you can use as like little wheels on things as well. And for the background I used squeezed lemonade and wild honey, or was it spiced marmalade? It might have been spiced marmalade, because they're very appropriate for this card. Oxide inks, and I just pressed the square across the card and then used the same colours to stamp the little citrus stamps on there as well. And then just finish with the We Were Marmalade for each other sentiment, and I just used some dream drops on there too. Then, using the actual jar again, I did this one where I made it into a jar of honey, which I ink blended with antique linen and wild honey to get that sort of a honey kind of a colour. And then I used 3 little bees coming off of the jar as well, and I just added in some extra leaves and flowers just to sort of fill out the card a little bit. But I just wanted to show how you don't have to have the jar as like the focus, like in the centre of the card. You can have it off to one side and have other things coming out of it, or you know, just dancing around it really. And the background, I used the homemade stamp and just stamped that a few times, added some splashes of Nouveau glitter marker, and I think I used Tumbled Glass Distress Oxide to blend the background as well. And for the bees, I cut them from white, added some blue alcohol pen to the wings, then coloured the rest of the die cut with a really dark grey, then stuck that onto some yellow cardstock, and then I coloured the head with the dark grey through the opening, and I just added a little bit of shading to the yellow, and then I just trimmed around it to give those little bees, which I think look really sweet. And again, I used a patterned paper for the top of the jar, and I did the From Granny's Kitchen little label on there as well. So I thought that turned out nicely. And then finally I did it's kind of a shaker card. You can hear it. It doesn't move that much because I used some really shallow depth 3D foam, but I wanted everything to sort of stay so you could actually see the lemon slices, because I used vellum for the shaker. So because I used a shallow depth of foam, everything's sort of staying where I placed it, which is really nice, so you can actually see all the pieces inside. For the background, I just created a random background using Mango Mimosa, spiced ginger, and the other one was tomato juice of the Aquaflows, and I just created a messy watercolory kind of a washy effect. And I also splashed in some Midas Touch glitter pen, what's it called? Aqua Shimmer, that's it. So I just did that for the background and used it behind the aperture of the jar as well. I used the stamp for the top of the jar. I used the straw and cut it in half, so half of it is behind in the shaker and half of it is peeking out the top of the jar. I used that gorgeous little bunting die. Did I even show you that? I must have done. A little bunting die that comes in the mason jar die set, and it cuts like this, so it's like a skeleton of bunting. So I just used a green alcohol pen to colour in the centres of it once I'd stuck it down. Inside the shaker I cut a few flowers and then lots of the little orange and lemon slices, and I just left them open inside here, so just as they cut. And I also used some little, what are they called, Desert Sunset Star Confetti from Tonic as well inside there. Then to finish the sort of bottom area of the jar, I used some of the little foliage pieces and cut them from Grass Green Craft Perfect. And then I cut a few more of the slices and I backed them onto another piece of card and then just trimmed around them so they were more solid rather than being able to see right through them as well. So, and I also used the stamp that gives you the little highlight on the jar and the bottom piece. It kind of got hidden because I stamped it on the piece that's at the back of the shaker, so I just went over with a black pen. I actually used one of these Arteza fine liners, and onto the vellum I just drew over what I could see through the vellum, which I think brings it all together a bit better. And then I just added You're the Sweetest on there as well. And in case you're now thinking that that jar is tiny, I actually made a massive card for once. So I mean, my usual size of card, I didn't actually make one of my usual sizes, but basically that matte and layer on there is sort of my usual size of card, so this one's quite a bit bigger. But I wanted to show how you can go from massive sort of 8x8 kind of a size of a card to a little small jar with the same die set as well. So I hope you enjoyed this up close look at the new mason jar die set from Tonic, and the little label die set as well. And I just wanted to show you a few different ways of how you can use it. So you can make it a citrusy drink, you can just use the pieces to create a kind of wreath. Again, you could switch out the orange slices and stamp the little strawberries lots of times and cut the strawberries out and add them onto a wreath if you wanted. But you can also go sweeties in the jar as well. You can make it honey, or you can just not use the jar at all and just do a cool wacky background using all of the gorgeous foliage. And you can also obviously do strawberry jam and everything as well, but I kind of ran out of time for showing every kind of different thing that you can put in a jar. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this up close look at everything, and I will see you again in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.